What is up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 59 of Thinktwice, the magic and pop culture show hosted by me, Justin Parnell, and my co-host,
Maggie May, my dog.
She's replacing Ali. We'll be able to provide significantly better modern and legacy insight.
Well, you should probably get more likes.
People love dogs.
People love Maggie.
It's what I've come to find out. I think if we replaced... And you know what? I would rather us just replace people with dogs. I feel like there would be some portions of society that would crumble.
What if that was your hero power?
That would be great.
Your hero power was like to change people to dogs. Like not kill them, but like there's...
Okay, have you seen... Oh my gosh. Have you seen the... I know you haven't, but maybe some of our viewers have. Have you seen the movie The Lobster? Okay.
No.
So... No,
Rock
listen.
Lobster?
You just listen. I'm going off of your suggestion, okay? But there's a movie where ultimately people are changed into animals if they end up being single for too long and not having a relationship because they're like a burden to society.
Oh,
and you get to pick what animal you want to be. So a lot of people obviously choose dogs. It's the most commonly picked animal. But it's called The Lobster because the main character, he's going to this like couples rehabilitation center. And it's not rehabilitation as a couple, but it's like rehabilitating you to be a couple with another person. But then if you're not able to find someone while you're there, you get turned into an animal. And he picks a lobster. That's his animal.
Why?
You have to watch the movie to find out. You gotta watch the movie to find out. It is a great movie. You would hate it, but some of our viewers, some of our listeners would probably like it. People with more discerning taste in film than your own.
Oh, okay. I see how it is. So my taste isn't as sophisticated.
Yeah, those are your words, not mine, but sure.
Okay.
Well, no, they're your words. I'm just agreeing with your words. It's like when you make fun of your mom, and then someone's like, yeah, she's a blah, blah, blah. And you're like, whoa. Don't talk about my mom like that. Only I could talk about my mom like that. See, I'm just simply agreeing with you rather than saying those words. You see what I mean? There's a very big difference.
Yeah, but it's... No. You know what?
Okay.
Let's move on.
You're going to escape the conversation?
Yeah, I'm escaping into the escape room. So this past weekend, I visited Justin.
Yep.
We were hanging out. We played some...
We played a lot of board games. Brought Maggie. She was very adorable.
Yeah, you met Maggie. How was... Yeah.
Everyone loved Maggie. She was a big hit with the humans.
She was. And we also did an escape room.
Right in Roanoke, Virginia. It was myself, Ali, my partner Meredith,
my friend Dalton, and Justin's friend Dalton,
and our friend and Magic World Champion, Brian Brundoin. So, yeah, it was fun. We did an escape room. I guess it was fun. Parts of it were fun.
It was your first one, right?
It was not. It was my third one.
Okay.
We've even done them before together.
Okay. Oh yeah. It was BBD.
It was BBD's first one.
Yeah.
It's good.
That one was.
I enjoyed the group that we were with. I think Meredith got a little overwhelmed because you have 4 heavy problem solvers like in the room, and we're kind of I felt like we worked together pretty well because we blazed through a lot of the first parts, but then as it got more difficult, we kind of all wanted to kind of go our own way, and some of us ended up being right, but got talked out of doing it by other people. And literally I think every single person had something they were right about, and then someone else was like, no, I don't think that's it. And almost all of them ended up being right. at one point. So I don't want to spoil anything, but we died in the room. We did not make it out.
We did die. Yeah. This one wasn't very like. There's some rooms that are more cohesive and like the clues in the room linked to each other.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a story. This one's story was kind of loose and fast. Yeah. And I personally don't like rooms that like. I like clues leading to clues. I don't like it where you have to play a scavenger hunt where you have to like look under the chair, look under the carpet, look behind the door, or in the corner or something to find something. Like, I don't like that. I'd rather have like a clue lead to a clue lead to a clue, and then like everything kind of makes sense at the end. And this escape room kind of did that a little bit in the beginning, but then towards the end, like one of the clues was you had to pull a drawer out, turn it over.
Well, that wasn't even a clue. That was just something you had to do at any.
Yeah,
and you have it available to you at any point because it's just an open drawer. But there's nothing that directs you to do that.
Yeah. It actually, in fact, the person running the room or the area is like, please don't like pull or anything. Don't use too hard or shake anything that's bolted or anything. Yeah, no. So we didn't use force and like, and then there was a picture. We looked up behind the picture, nothing there. We looked under both the carpets, nothing there. So we're like, okay, this room is just basically just clue to clue. They're not trying to like be silly and hide something randomly under something that doesn't make any sense. Like basically, like you literally had to pull the drawer out for no reason, which was kind of hard to pull out, and then look under it. And it was just like nothing leading you there. And I don't like those. Like I don't like doing that.
It did put a little bit of a damper on it because I felt like even if we had gotten every single clue, which we almost did, we wouldn't have gotten that one because there's no clue that led us to the kind of random. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 0% chance.
Yeah, it's a little bit disappointing, but it was. I do enjoy them. I didn't really. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. That was my third one. I think I liked it the least of all of the ones that I've done. But it's fun. It's fun even when you lose, which we did, and I was really frustrated. It's a fun experience. It wasn't very fun at the very end when I found out why we lost, but it's okay. It's okay to get brought down to earth.
Yeah,
sometimes.
I mean, being with friends is always nice, like winning or losing. For me, anyways, I've matured enough for it to be that way. Like I've learned through playing Magic, like even if you lose, you can always cheer your buddy on.
That's true
when they're winning, and
yeah.
And that's huge. That's not the way it happened. Like originally when I played Magic, if I lost at Magic, that was it. My weekend was done, and I was miserable the rest of the weekend or whatever, or I wanted to go home. But now it's like, if I lose, I still have friends that I want to do well, and like I can cheer them on
vicariously through their success. Do you feel like that you can live vicariously through the success of Lightning Bolt defeating Fatal Push in Question of the Week?
Yeah. I don't understand it,
excellent.
But I can do it.
So our Question of the Week last week was which card in the inevitable event when Stoneforge Mystic is eventually unbanned will send it packing more often. Ollie said Fatal Push, I said Lightning Bolt. It was very close. 48% for Fatal Push, 52% for Lightning Bolt. I think the big thing is Lightning Bolt is the greatest removal spell of all time, and Fatal Push is the second or third. Probably third.
But Push gets the Germ and the Stoneforge, but
they're dead if you just have Lightning Bolt.
Okay, all right.
Well, yeah.
As that works? Okay.
Because if you kill the Stoneforge, right, then it's like, okay, so we have to assume that the first push or the first bolt kills the Stoneforge. And then the rest of the bolts, they're going upstairs. You know where the Fatal Pushes are going?
Okay.
They're waiting for that Germ to come down. Then they're going to kill it. But then they can just bounce the Battle Scroll back up and they play it again and do the dance. If you have Lightning Bolt, they're just dead. Just like Fatal Push's chances in this poll.
Okay. All right.
Close but not close enough. 48 to 52%. Lightning Bolt takes it home to Team Parnell. Okay, so this is the time in the show where we want to thank everyone listening. SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, and Google Play Music. If you're listening on one of those platforms and you would like to be listening on another platform that's not one of those, let us know what it is. We would like to get on as many platforms as possible. We want to allow you guys to listen to the podcast in the way that you choose to. We've had a couple people suggest Spotify. That's something that is on our radar to do. But if you're on one of these great platforms, please make sure to leave us a review if you are able. And if you can, please support us on patreon.com/thinktwicemtg. We have a lot of great rewards tiers that are tied to the podcast, as well as some other things. Ali has a streaming tier where you can submit decks to him. I have a commander tier where you can submit decks to me for Commander Versus. And then we have a lot of things small in that, including our $1 Augur of Bolus tier. This gets you a bunch of things. This gets you early access to the show by a day. It's posted on Friday rather than Saturday. This gets you access to our exclusive Think Twice Discord channel, including our Animal Lovers channel, where a bunch of people post adorable animal pictures, which is our favorite one. I think is the consensus favorite one. It certainly has the most posts. And you also get a if you support at the $1 Augur of Bolus tier for 4 episodes, we will send you a pair of Ali and Justin Think Twice tokens. A demon, a 5/5 demon, and a shapeshifter angel dinosaur man. He's a star. You can do whatever you want it to be.
Anything.
Whatever.
Demon can be a demon.
Whatever you want it to be. So we just got the oh my gosh, the foil tokens for the $15 tier in the mail, and I sent Ali a picture of one of the 5/5 demon tokens, and he was like, "Let me see that shapeshifter token." I was like, "I just showed it to you. You get it? You get it? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got
Excellent. You're such a good sport." Okay, so let's move on to our first topic this week. GP Richmond is coming up this week. It's a double Grand Prix featuring Legacy and Standard. In my opinion, the best format of the main 3 formats and the worst format. But we're not going to be worrying about Standard because Standard is not as good as Legacy. So when we return, we're going to talk about Ollie's future experience playing in GP Richmond and what cards I think you should be on the lookout for. Be back in just a moment. So Ali Aintrazi, normally it is I that is partaking in the Legacy action. But instead I will be partaking in the sales booth working the entire event action, and you will be partaking in the Legacy action.
That's true. Actually, it's going to be a little rough for me. I realized to play this weekend because Aiden, my son, starts school. His first day is Thursday. Okay. And then he goes Friday. And also, the GP apparently starts Friday, and I was not aware this one starts on Friday.
Okay, yeah, it does. This is the Friday-Saturday GP.
Yes, so I'm going to try to figure that out. If I'll find someone to take him to school and bring him back on Friday for me. That's going to be a little rough, but hopefully I can do it. But I'm pretty excited. Obviously, we've been talking about the same deck. We talked about a little more about it this weekend.
So why don't you fill everybody in on the deck that you have decided on?
I've decided to play a Sultai Veteran Explorer deck, or Nick Fit.
Traditionally has been called Nick Fit, but that's, I mean, Ollie and I were talking about this over the weekend. I think that Nick Fit, people call a deck that has Cabal Therapy and Veteran Explorer in it Nick Fit, but I don't think that the deck that Ollie is playing shares a huge amount of crossover with other decks that have that combination.
Yeah, there actually, side note, had an argument on Twitter over this, and I prefer, I understand people want to call their Legacy decks Syphilid Breakfast or Nick Fit or Death and Taxes. But I prefer
descriptive names
or Rug Delver. Yeah, like Sultai Veteran Explorer or Mono White. What do you want to call a Val deck? You know, or Blue White Miracles or Teamer Delver, because Magic has defined that shard card now. It's called Teamer, and I prefer that because I can get an idea of the deck. Where if someone's just playing, let's say someone plays Standard and Modern, has no idea what Legacy is, or doesn't play Legacy much, I'm like, yeah, I'm playing Nick Fit. Like, what's Nick Fit? Is that a card? Like, is it what's? Oh. Is it Survival of the Fittest?
Yeah,
like, what is it?
Exactly? And that's a great, and exactly, and that's a great, and I completely agree with you. And honestly, I think most people that know those deck names know them from use, not from like what they mean.
Yeah, and they just want to be like, oh yeah, I've played Legacy forever, so I'm cool and I know these names. I feel like it's like almost like a prestige thing.
It's exclusionary, which I think is the opposite. Ironically, yeah, and it's really frustrating because obviously I'm someone that plays Legacy a lot, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think descriptive names are absolutely superior to cutesy deck names.
Yeah,
but the people that are playing these formats specifically, like Legacy is a really great example. Acting like that just excludes people from playing the format, which actually helps kill your format over the long term. Because if you have a crappy attitude towards someone, you make them feel stupid. They're like, yeah, no, maybe I don't want to play Legacy. Maybe this is how the people act. I don't want to play Legacy. That's one less Legacy player. That's one less person that's enrolling in the tournaments. That's one less person that is paying money to play the format that you want to play. It just hurts you in the long run. So I really hate when people do that.
Yeah, I don't want too much in that thread, but yeah, I felt like basically people telling me that, you know, this is what it's called. Your deck isn't a brew. It's been a thing for like I understand the combo Veteran Explorer and Combo Therapy is a thing.
Yeah,
like I know I didn't invent that, but I could not find a deck that was similar to that was Sultai that played a bunch of Planeswalkers, a lot of cards I was playing that was comparable. Like and I wish I did, because that way I could shape my deck around it more, but I didn't. And then so anyways, but that's like I agree with you too. I feel like if someone's just trying to play the format, you should just be as welcoming as possible, especially for the Legacy format, or even
I mean any format, but it skews higher, I think, for the older formats like Legacy and Vintage in particular. I think standard decks and modern decks to a lesser extent. There's only a couple in modern that don't have like clear descriptors. But outside of that, yeah, it really skews highly to non-standard modern formats. So, but you know, I play a lot of Legacy, and I actually am excited for your deck. I'm excited for your deck. I actually think that you are, you know, going in. I've been thinking about what I think are the most commonly played decks, right? And I think that the Sultai Explorer deck, which is what I'm just going to be calling it for the rest of this episode if we reference it again, the Sultai Explorer deck that you're going to be playing is actually in pretty well positioned against I think the first tier and some of the second tier in Legacy. And I think that's where you want to be. So I guess if you have anything to... We can talk about the tiers in a moment. I guess I'll let you have anything to add before we get to that.
I don't really. I just know I'm excited to play the deck. And I feel like you... Like, I gave you, like, basically a skeleton, and you've been able to make it better or help out. So
yeah, it's been good, and I you know, I always like that process when you know, you're certainly obviously a better deck builder than I am. I don't think that's a stretch to even suggest that, even in Legacy, even with you playing less. But I feel like I'm a pretty good tuner and know the Legacy format. So,
well, you're definitely better. You're definitely better refiner than I am Legacy. And one thing that's, I think, a little off tangent, but being a deck builder doesn't mean like that I can just build decks and, you know, take them in one tournament like right away. The huge part of being a deck builder is like it's just getting the rough, the rough idea and putting on paper and getting together, and then the hardest part, or the best part, or the most important part is playing games and losing those first like 20 games or matches and learning what works and what doesn't work, and then tuning it from there and that's when you have a good brew or a good deck. No one, I don't think anybody actually can just be like, okay, here's 75, it's perfect.
Especially when you're simply building a deck from the ground up. It does not happen.
That doesn't happen.
If you see that happen and it looks like, man, this guy made this deck out of nowhere. This guy or girl got their face beat in for the first 20 to 30 matches they played this deck, guaranteed. And they were tweaking it all along the way.
Yeah.
But that's just how it works. That's the process.
Yeah, the only time it happens, like if someone does well, it's very rare. Like it's happened to me once. The one time it happened to me was I was on a cruise with my ex-girlfriend Amberly, and I brewed a Sultai. Emrakul Promising had just come out. I brewed a Sultai Emrakul, and put that together. Literally played 0 games with it, and got second at the event. But afterwards, I lost in the finals because because I didn't have enough kill spells for Spellquiller. I was playing something. I can't remember exactly what I was doing. It was like I was playing. It wasn't Fatal Push at the time, but basically I was playing 2 Fatal Push instead of 4. It was whatever the removal spell that I should have been playing 4 of instead of Grasp of Darkness.
Grasp of Darkness, yeah.
I was playing 2 Grasp of Darkness. I was playing 2 Grasp instead of 4, and that's something you fix in the first like.
Yeah, you're like, wow, I just can't kill. I can't kill this commonly played thing.
Exactly, and if I had just played just 1 match or 3 matches, I would have learned that hey, I need 4 Grasp of Darkness, but I could have won the event. But it's just basically like that. And like I got lucky because I was just playing powerful cards, and Emrakul was at that time not played, and nobody was playing it, but the power of the card was absurdly powerful.
Well,
so
I think that's a good coming full circle, because you find yourself here again playing a big mana Sultai deck with an Emrakul the Promise
favorite color combination
in the deck.
Yeah, we do.
Which I actually think is very good. I think that's gonna. I think your success rate on casting that is gonna be really high, like probably close to 100.
I think so too.
Like I don't think you're gonna win every single game you cast it, but I think you're gonna win all of them but one.
It's gonna. I mean, sure. It's gonna put. Yeah, I think every game. Yeah, it's gonna be really close. It might be every game. We'll see, but that's a powerful effect, especially in Legacy. I can't like. There's fetch lands in Legacy.
There's a lot of things that and then you have to deal with 13/13 that you can't kill with most of the removal spells.
Yeah.
No, you cannot. You absolutely cannot. Okay. So the reason I think that this, like I said, that I think that this Sultai Explorer deck is well positioned is because I've kind of thought about, I'm like, well, okay, so I've only played 1 tournament of Legacy since the bannings, but I obviously keep up. This is a format that I pretty regularly keep up with the decks that are being played, and kind of keep a list in my head of like, okay, if I'm building a deck, what do I need to watch out for? What do I need to make sure that I'm prepared against? What holes can I exploit? So I think after the bannings, there's not a de facto best deck. So obviously I've talked a lot about, liking to play with Deathrat Shaman and Gitaxian Pro, but they're not coming back. I'm past that. So at this point, Legacy is a pretty healthy format as far as deck diversity. But I do think there is a clear line in kind of maybe the top 10 decks and then everything else. And obviously this isn't counting any brews, because I do consider the Sultai Explorer deck a brew, even though it's not, like Ollie said, he's not the first person to put Cabal Therapy and Veteran Explorer in the same deck. That being said, it's still not a commonly played deck, so it doesn't really count. So tier 1, I think there's 5 decks that kind of have a head up above the rest.
Okay.
And I'm kind of going to go in reverse order just because I think the last one I want to talk, the first one I have listed is the one I want to talk about the most, so I'll leave that for the last. First deck in tier 1 I think is Miracles. I think this is a high skill cap deck that is playing a lot of cards that are particularly powerful in this format, and it does the best job at controlling the tempo of the game. This is really the only true control deck in the format. Well, I guess that's not true. There's one more on this list that is a true control deck. But this is just, I mean, this is basically blue-white control in Legacy. It's killing.
That deck also has it survived so many ban. Like I can't believe that deck survived top banning.
Yeah.
By the way, just random.
That was a great time there, because,
yeah.
Someone that I played that frequently played Miracles. His name is Sam Ralkus. He was my finals opponent in a big Legacy event where the prizes were a Black Lotus to second and a Lotus, a Recall, and a Time Walk to first. So crazy prizes. And he ended up beating me in game 3 of the finals. I was playing Grixis Delver, he was playing Miracles. And shortly after that, like, I don't know, maybe a month after that, Top gets banned. So I see him at the next Legacy event. We talk a little bit, and we start talking about Miracles, and we're like, and I was like, so you still think this deck is good, right? He's like, yeah. But we knew he was like, yeah, but I want to try this other deck. And so he was working on this like Esper Mentor deck, which I actually liked a lot, but you can't play that now because you get Taxing Probe. Anyway, but we talked about that, and there was a time when Top was banned that people just, whenever a card gets banned, that's like, oh, this is the card that's holding this whole deck together, people just jump off the deck. Like they die, like they're just like abandoned ship. This deck is unsalvageable. Yeah. Well, as it turns out, that was the lock piece of the deck, along with Counterbalance, obviously, but that wasn't the most important combination of the deck, because you still have Brainstorm, which is the best card in the deck by a mile, as well as Jace the Mind Sculptor and Terminus, which makes it difficult for creature decks to beat you, as well as the combination of Snapcaster Mage and Swords of Plowshares. So Miracles is going to be just fine. It's not an easy deck to play because there are a lot of different ways you can build it. This is something BBD and I were talking about over the weekend, about kind of our different builds of Miracles, which actually ended up surprisingly were a lot closer together than I thought they would be. But I think Miracles is a very, very good deck, and I would consider it a tier 1 deck in Legacy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree too. I agree as well. But it's just crazy that happened. Like, I wouldn't have guessed that, honestly. If you're like, hey, do you think Miracles would be like one of the tier 1 best tier 1 decks after top banning? Like, huh.
And it's taken some time, and it's really on the strength of that core of cards. Snapcaster Mage, which is the most critical card in the deck to the deck's success. Brainstorm is the best card in the deck, but it's the best card in every deck that it's in. So that's kind of weird to say. The next deck is a non-Brainstorm deck, and that is Death and Taxes. This deck has preyed the most on the banning of Deathrite Shaman, because this is the deck that basically stops other decks from functioning. It's not a control deck, obviously, because it kind of plays a lot of creatures. You're not using a lot of non-creatures, but you're using Phyrexian Revoker, Thalia, Rishadan Port, Wasteland, etc., to deny your opponent of resources while you kill them. Deathrite Shaman being removed meant a card that you could only answer exclusively with Phyrexian Revoker. You can't answer it with Thalia. You can't really answer it with Wasteland or Port, because it's, all right, well, they still have the Deathrite Shaman. So you're spending more resources trying to stop them, and they can spend virtually nothing to continue their game plan of casting spells. So without that, a lot of the blue aggro decks have the matchup has evened out a little bit because of the strength of mainly because of the strength of the combination of Thalia and Wasteland. So the blue aggro decks don't play very many basics, and it's significantly more difficult for them to cast their spells. So they have been able to prey upon that. This is not a deck that I love, but it's just because of the style. I do think the deck is good, and it has performed better than I initially thought it was going to.
Okay.
Any thoughts on Death and Taxes?
I think the deck is like, I think it was the go-to deck to play.
It's like, well, we didn't lose any.
How cheap? Well, first I'll say, like, I think people got into it because how cheap it was, and I thought, oh, people play this deck because it's a cheap deck to play.
It's not that cheap.
It's not really that that good. Oh well, back when it was like, I guess being played, but now, like, after I've seen it played or played against it or see people play it, I realize how intricate the deck is, and it looks simple, but it's it's so hard.
It's actually one
to
of
play
the
correctly.
I would say it's probably in the top 3 of deck difficulties to pilot in Legacy.
Yes. Yeah, because there's so many other things you can do in like ways you can build it, and it's super interesting. And it's like a prison deck with creatures.
Exactly, that's exactly what it is.
That can. Yeah, and I think the deck is the best hate bear deck. But it's so much more than that. It's just I don't know. I never talked this much about a creature deck. Like
it's more than a creature. It's more than a creature deck because it's so disruptive to your game plan, whatever you're doing. It has a way to be like, you thought you're just gonna walk in here and just do this, but you're not. Yeah, that's why I really like the Sultai Explorer deck. You're able to fight them from a few different axes. Namely, you have a card that they simply cannot beat unless they revoker it, which is Pernicious Deed. That literally just destroys them completely. They can revoker that, but then they have to like revoker that, and then Liliana Last Hope, and then they have to like get past your creatures. I don't know. It's a lot to ask for them. So yeah. Next deck is Sneak and Show. This deck we've talked about a lot. It hasn't really changed. It didn't lose anything from the bannings. This is the best combo deck in the format. It is the quickest and the most resilient.
You think it's better than
Yeah, I do think it's better than Storm. We'll talk about Storm later. I do think it's better than Storm because it requires less components. You can Storm, if you mold a 5, you're in rough shape. You can mold a 5 and then win on turn 2 with Sneak and Show still. You know, it's just the raw power of this deck and what it's capable of doing at a really high clip makes this still one of the decks that you have to consistently watch out for. You can't ignore this deck when you're deck building. The second best control deck, in my opinion, is the most difficult deck to pilot in Legacy, and I don't think it's particularly close, is Lance. Yeah, you don't see this deck too frequently in real Magic because it's extremely expensive. Obviously, lands are really expensive cards. You have Tabernacle of Pendraveil, which is Did you know Tabernacle Pendraveil is the second most expensive Magic card after Black Lotus?
Jesus, I saw 4 of those cards too.
Well.
I don't want to know. I want to know. Tell me. How much is it?
So the reason that it's the second most expensive card after Black Lotus, obviously, like a Underground Sea from Beta is going to be more than a Tabernacle, but you can only get like one printing of Tabernacle, right? Because it's
right. It can be Italian though, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, sure, not counting the Italian one, but as far as just a regular card, like where you have no other option, and even the Italian one, you can, it's that moves it down a little bit. But Tabernacle Pendraveil, you want to guess? Do you want to guess the price before I tell you?
$1,500.
Are you guessing Italian or English?
Oh my God.
Well, why don't you go ahead and double that guess? Yeah.
Jesus, $3,000. Jeez.
Yep.
Okay.
And see, that's.
I sold a car for.
You sure did. You did not get your Kelly Blue Book on that one. Okay, and then the last deck that I think. Anyway, Lands is. I guess before I go to the last deck, Lands is a deck that is incredibly difficult to play, but is the best control deck. And ends up killing you with a Merit Lodge, which is generally pretty tough to stop for most decks because Lands is very resilient. And just using the few non-land cards they have, they can disrupt you and kind of make sure that you're playing the game they want to play because you're only allowed to have 4 Wastelands, and that's usually not going to be enough. Okay. The last deck that I think is a Tier 1 deck, this is it's not a new deck, but it kind of is Grixis Control. Grixis Control kind of evolved from the check pile decks that were around at the end of the format or the end of the previous format with Deathrite Shaman really holding all of those 4 colors together. It was everything but white, and now this is just Grixis. This deck relies heavily on Snapcaster Mage, Kolaghan's Command, Hymn to Turok, and Baleful Strix, just to supply a constant stream of value. And those are really like the 4 critical components of the deck. This is the Jund deck of the format. This is literally just Jund. You're just playing blue instead of green, but that is exactly what this deck is. And that's kind of what we have formed the Sultai Explorer deck around, is you are playing a very Jundy deck as well. But you're playing green to take advantage of arguably the best board wipe, but most decks can't take advantage of it, as well as a significant amount of mana ramp in the form of Veteran Explorer, of course. And then you get a card,
which is Deed.
Pernicious Deed is the best sweeper, but it's difficult to play because you need a lot of mana, and this is really the only deck that can pull it off. And then you get one of the absolutely best threats in the format that does not have a home right now, and that is Leovold, Emissary of Trust. This card is outstanding. Anyway,
that card is everywhere. But after Deathrite banning, it's like
and I'll talk about why when we in just a moment. And then I think we have so those are the 5 tier 1 decks. And then I think we have a tier 2. I'm not going to spend as much time on these because they haven't really changed, most of them. The tier 2 decks I believe are Green Black Depths, which is basically a turbo Dark Depths deck. I think this deck it didn't really lose anything. It's pretty hard to interact with. It's just trying to put a Merit Lodge and play as quickly as possible. The next one is Red Black Reanimator for the same reason. Didn't really lose anything. Difficult to interact with. But if this is also a deck where it's very fast, but it's not that resilient. If you want to beat this is like a Reanimator deck. It's like if you want to beat it, you can. They're not doing any tricks. They're putting a creature in the graveyard and they're bringing it back out, and that's how they're going to beat you. Just straight up, they're just going to try to do it as quickly as they can. Grixis Delver is a deck that got knocked down a peg. This was the de facto best deck prior to the bannings, and it's still playable, but Deathrite Shaman took away a lot of its reach. So this deck is still good, really relying on Young Pyromancer, Gurmag Angler, Delver of Secrets, True Nemesis every now and then. But it's playing the same game it was, but it just isn't doing it as well as it used to. And then the last 2 decks, one you alluded to earlier, and that's ANT, which is the Ad Nauseam Tendrils Storm deck. So Storm is kind of the most common name for it. This deck lost just enough from Gitaxian Probe getting banned that it moves it down just 1 peg. This is also now the reason that this deck got hurt a lot, because it's like, well, Deathrite Shaman was a card that preyed on this deck and made it really difficult for this deck to operate. But Gitaxian Probe was a tool that a lot of players that maybe weren't as skilled playing this deck had to lean on to operate the deck, and without Gitaxian Probe existing, they're picking up a lot less free wins.
Yeah, that makes sense. Being able to peek or look at their hand and be like, oh, yeah. Okay.
It was essentially, I mean, this was essentially, from a win percentage perspective, a card that leaned on Gitaxian Probe at the highest clip to operate its game plan. So it's still very good. I still think it's one of the 10 best decks in Legacy, but I think it's worse than the other 5 decks that we talked about earlier. And then the last tier 2 deck is a deck that obviously I've talked about a lot on the show and has been getting a lot more popular, and that's Blue Black Death Shadow. I don't think this is a tier 1 deck. I think it's a tier 2 deck. I think this is kind of a flavor of the month type thing, where a lot more people are playing it. But ultimately, this is a deck that's, I don't want to say it's easy to beat, but the format could shift, and a bunch more decks are playing Swords of Plowshares, and Death Shadow is not unplayable, but you have to work a lot harder for your wins I'm just, as someone who's cast Death Shadow in Legacy more than just about anybody else, you can do it. You can absolutely beat the swords decks, but you have to work really hard, and that's a reason why I think the blue-black Death Shadow is a tier 2 deck, and Death Taxes and Miracles, which are the 2 de facto Swords of Plowshare decks, are in tier 1. Yep,
that makes sense.
Okay, so those are the first 2 tiers in Legacy. We're gonna do a little lightning round. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have. We'll do underrated cards and then overrated cards. All right.
Okay.
So underrated, Hydroblast. There's not a ton of red hanging around, but if you play blue, chances are you're not going to want to see a Blood Moon, or you're not going to want to see a Sneak Attack, or you're not going to want to see a Pyroblast, or excuse me, a Pyroclasm, and you're not going to want to see a Pyroblast at some point because they're going to counter your blue cards. Hydroblast is a niche card. You don't want to play too many of them, but when it's good, it's exceptional because it's just counterspell for 1 mana. Go ahead.
I'll say another underrated card. I think this one's also underrated in Modern too. Ensnaring Bridge. Basically, it's just a card that if you have any other way to win besides creature damage, like or Merit Lodge, or just like Jace, or even Storm, or just any other way to win outside of creature damage, I think Bridge is a nice way to get free wins, basically. Especially if you don't play many artifacts, like if you're maybe if you're like playing a creature deck that has Jace in it, like let's say maybe Grixis Control or even Blue Black or something, having a Bridge come into play to stop like Grizzlebrand or Merit Lodge or Emrakul, or even just like a bunch of other small creatures, or even playing Burn. If you're playing Burn, it's a good way to like get some early damage in, play Bridge, and then just burn them out with like Grim Lawmancer and your burn spells. It's just a very underrated card that gets a lot of decks free wins, especially if those decks aren't playing artifacts.
I completely agree. I think a lot of people think that you have to have like 1 or 0 cards in your hand for Bridge to be effective. And in Legacy, that is just not the case. You're frequently dying to 15/15 Emrakuls, 7/7 Gristlebrands, 20/20 Gurmag, 5/5 Gurmag Anglers, 20/20 Merit Lodges. Like if you can keep like 3 or 4 cards in your hand, especially if you're a black and red deck, because you're not forced to keep as many cards in your hand when you're casting discard spells and removal spells, and you're controlling the game that way. This card can just win you games on its own. I think it is a very underrated card. My next one is Tireless Tracker. I think green is the worst that it's been in Legacy in a really long time. Namely because Deathrite Shaman kind of removed a lot of the reason to even go into the color at all, as well as fixing to splash the few green cards that you wanted to play. But Tireless Tracker in the decks that can play it, which are kind of the bigger mana decks, specifically like lands, where people take out their removal, this card also can just take over the game. You just draw so many cards and create this gigantic threat that they have to answer, and the axis in which they're answering this card is completely different than the way they're fighting the rest of your deck. This card,
I think so too.
I can assure you, if you're not prepared, is terrifying to play against.
It's also another one that's good in Modern.
Yeah, I think Tireless Tracker is awesome.
Yeah. Okay, one last card is underrated. You know what card is? You know how annoying Thalia can be? Guardian 3-man?
I do, and very much so.
Do you know what's even worse after they play
a follow-up?
Guardian 3-man?
What is the worst follow-up?
Yeah. Another Thalia.
Yeah.
But Heretic Cathar, especially in Legacy, where your fetch is going to play tapped, then you got to crack the fetch, and then your land comes play tapped again, and it's just like, and then all your spells cost 1 more mana. You're just dead. By the time you can cast anything, you're dead. Like Jace looks like Emrakul in your hand because you never cast it.
No, that's true. That's true.
So.
This card sees more play in Vintage than it does in Legacy, which is crazy. Like, well, sure, I mean, sure. It's and it does exactly that. Yeah, this card is. People were messing around with like different configurations after the bannings for Death and Taxes, and I'm glad they're not playing this card because I generally play greedier decks don't have very many basic lands in Legacy, and this like you just don't have time. If they play Cavern Souls or get this down on a Aether Vial, you just don't have time. They're gonna attack you for 2 or 4 or 5, 3 turns. That's all it takes, man, and then you are dead. It doesn't matter. Like, this isn't good against every deck, but it's good against a lot of them. It's even good against Sneak and Show because they can't sneak attack. Because they come to play tapped. You can't block because your creature's coming to play tapped. So I completely agree. I think it's a way underrated card. But I'm glad for what it's worth that people are not playing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Overrated cards. You start on this one, and I'll jump in when I feel like I'm are mad about cards are picked.
Sure. Okay. This is a card that I've always thought is overrated, especially when I played it a long time ago in an open.
Okay. Strong one. You're starting with the worst card in Legacy. Okay.
This card was just so hit or miss. Like, I needed to resolve a threat or hold up Stifle. I had to be on the play, otherwise the card was miserable. And if you're not stifling like fetch lands, you're basically doing nothing. This card, like, you need to stifle fetch lands and you want to be on the play. The only other time I did anything was maybe when I stifled 1 Grizzlebrand trigger and my opponent happened to be under 7 life, otherwise it just didn't matter. But then, even then, like, next turn they can attack me and gain 7, then do it anyways.
And since you're playing Stifle, you have no way to stop a Grizzlebrand from attacking you.
Exactly, yeah. It's either, like, good, like, 80% of the time. Like, it's either, like, good or unplayable. Like, it's, like, the worst card in your deck or a decent card in your deck. And that's just awful. Like, that's just, like, awful. Like, the wavelength. It's like, okay, this is pretty good. I can stifle a fetch land. Or it's, like, just unplayable when we draw it, like, turn 3 when you got their mana or whatever.
I think Stifle's awful.
I hate this card.
I've hated this card for a long time. I'll never play with this card in Legacy. I think it's wildly easy to play around, even when you allow yourself to get got by it. Cards are too valuable. Like, physical cards, physical copies of cards are too valuable to be wasting it on that type of thing. I'm not saying this can't work. Like, if you get a heavy fetch land stifle draw or a wasteland stifle draw, I guess you can play whatever creature that you're playing and you can get them before they do anything, but that's so rare.
It has to be that. Yeah. It has to be that. It has to be that. Otherwise, it's awful. Like, that's what it has to be. You have to have the 1-drop, then the Stifle, and then, like, not play the 1-drop, and then draw another land so you can play the Delver and still hold up Stifle because you need to use it. And it's just miserable. Like there's times where you, like, there's times, like, add a fetch land or an island or whatever, play it, pass it, my opponent plays a basic, and it's like, or plays it just like, or like, you know, underground scene, just like, okay, I can't stifle them playing lands normally, and you're just like basically dead. Not dead, but like you just wasted a turn to time walk yourself.
Not only have you time walked yourself, but you made yourself discard.
It's just the scenarios where it's good, but they're so small compared to, and then like they're so small compared to the scenarios when it's bad, and it's like it's awful.
I've won multiple games where my opponents have stifled like more than one of my lands.
That's kind of like sad.
Well, since we're hating on Stifle, I'm going to say Nimble Mongoose. I don't think this card has been good in a decade.
The Goose is not loose.
And I'm not even exaggerating. Literally like a decade.
The Goose is on
I think the last time this card was good was right after Survival of the Fittest got banned. Most of you probably don't even remember when that was legal in Legacy. It's a 3/3. It's just not big enough. It doesn't matter if it has Shroud, because no one needs to kill it. You can just play a larger creature or just race it. It's so irrelevant. It does not matter. You have to work too hard to make it even a 3/3. There are times when you draw this and it's a 1/1 and you're embarrassed it's in your deck. Well, you know what? I'm embarrassed for you. Okay, your turn.
All right. This next one is one that I'm glad to see people biling in instead of Thalia Herdigathar, and that's Brightling. I think Brightling is like
It's cute.
Cute?
It's cute. I'll give him that. It's cute. I'm not saying it can't win games, but
yeah, but win more games.
Talia, yeah.
Talia.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
It just doesn't do it. Like it requires more mana to be useful, and you don't have a ton of mana available to you all the time. And the fact that it requires multiple, like it doesn't even really fully protect itself. Like if it was like pay 1 white, gain protection, player of your choice. Okay, its abilities are like gain vigilance, like whatever.
That one's pretty good.
That one's relevant. Return Blight to your hand is like, you better have Vial, because if you don't have Vial, it's kind of miserable.
Yeah, I think people got. I do think legitimately that if you have games where you have Aether Vial on turn 1 or turn 2, that this card is legitimately good. But if you don't have Aether Vial or Aether Vial gets destroyed, I think this card is not good. At all. It costs a lot of mana in a deck that doesn't have access to a lot of mana. If they're casting Brightling with their mana, they're not wastelanding you, they're not Rashad porting you, they're not playing out additional threats.
I mean, this is basically the new card, Bramaz, King of Earth's Coast. Let me try it out. I still think Bramaz is better. Bramaz is a 3/4, doesn't have a bolt, and he's a vigilant, so when he blocks or attacks, he makes cats, and does require more mana. Like if someone bolts your Brightling, you have to turn to your hand or switch power and toughness. It's like, I think that's all it is. It's like, okay, I'm trying out Bramaz, I'm trying out Brightling, but it's not the card I should be playing, which is fine. But it's definitely an overrated card.
And then the last one for me is one that pains me to say, and that is Tarmogoyf. This is a creature I love a lot, but green is so bad right now that you should simply just be playing another color that's not green. If you're playing green, you're probably not playing creatures. You're probably playing lands, which is totally fine. If that's what you... I know.
I'm playing green.
I know. You're playing lands, though. You're a land kind of a land-based
kind
deck.
of.
And green is is not the main color in your deck. Either way, if you're a green deck that is interested in attacking your opponent until they die, then you're probably, I don't know. I think your deck is poorly positioned. So I don't know. I hate to say it, but I don't think Tarmogoyf is in good shape right
now. Yeah, I agree with you. And also think same way in Modern. Like, just if you want to play Tarmogoyf deck, just play Mardu. Your Tarmogoyf has prowess in Mardu.
Yeah.
And better than Everler. So.
Yep.
I agree. Oh, also draw the 3 card. Has prowess and
has an ancestral recall attached to it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Last things I have to say. I think cards that you should be playing in Legacy. Obviously, not every single one of these cards in the same deck, but your deck should have 1 to 2 of these cards in it, unless you're playing a kind of a Nyx, not a Nyx, like a niche deck. Like lands, this doesn't really count, but just like kind of just about everything else. And I'm not talking about Force Duel. I'm not talking about Brainstorm. I'm not talking about the literal pillars of the format. But I think 5 of the best cards in Legacy right now against a variety of decks are Snapcaster Mage, Swords of Plowshares, Thoughtseize, Baleful Strix, and Grim Lavamancer. Grim Lavamancer's, I want to put it in the underrated, but people are playing it. But I kind of want to remind everyone how good this card is right now. So that's my final thoughts on Legacy.
All right.
Awesome.
I got nothing else.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for sitting through our Legacy update. We're going to transition from Magic a little bit. We don't have a story today. Hopefully, we will be getting a story soon, a Magic story that we can talk about. But Ollie and I were able to play a number of board games over the weekend, and we have been wanting to talk about board games since I returned from Gen Con. So today is that day. We're going to talk about a bunch of sweet board games that we've played coming up in just a moment. Ollie, so myself, you, Dalton, Meredith, and BBD, we were able to play a bunch of board games over the weekend.
Yeah, that's basically all we did, or mostly besides eat, obviously. But yeah, and escape room.
It was nice. I really love board games. I try to play board games at least once a month, and I've been able to play them with Meredith and her sons Parker and Levi significantly more. I'm trying to get them more into board games so we can kind of do it as a family, which has been great. But we had a special time this weekend with you, specifically you and Dalton visiting. We got to play a lot of sweet games. So we kind of just wanted to go over some of the games that we played. A few of them are new, a few of them are not, but they're pretty much all games we haven't really talked about on the podcast before, with the exception of the first one, to a degree, right?
Right. Yep. The first one is One Night Ultimate Werewolf. We've talked about werewolf on the podcast before, but One Night Ultimate Werewolf is a board game. It's very similar to the Werewolf social game, but it's one night and it's extremely fast. It's like it takes like
I would say a max of
7 minutes to play.
I think I would say realistically it's probably about 15 minutes a game.
Well, I think you have 5 minutes to actually I think you clap and close your eyes for 2 minutes, then 5 minutes, then you have 5 to vote somebody, right? That's it. I think it's less
probably 10 minutes max. I'm saying if with the setup and everything. Yeah, so probably I think 10 minutes is
sure.
So it's similar to Werewolf, which is kind of a long Werewolf or Mafia, which is kind of like the long form social reduction game. People get assigned roles randomly. Some people are werewolves, some people are villagers, and you try to figure out who it is. Now, in One Night Ultimate Werewolf, there's only one night, so obviously it's in the title. So virtually all of the information you're going to be gathering to have the 5-minute discussion is going to be is going to happen during that night. There's a lot of special abilities for both the werewolves and the townspeople. And the time limit they put on it makes it very fast and furious, with accusations flying, people lying when they're good, people are lying when they're bad. Basically trying to deceive every single person, and hope that the people that think they're on the same side are on the same side, because it can change without you knowing.
Yeah, it's great. This game you can wake up, or you can know you're a werewolf as the game begins, and then there's a role that's called the troublemaker that switches someone's role with somebody else's, and they don't know it. So let's say Justin and I are I'm werewolf and Justin is a villager, or a seer or whatever, a villager. We'll say villager, and then one of the players, a troublemaker, they switch our cards. I'm the werewolf and I'm trying to get somebody else killed and win as a werewolf, but I don't know that someone has switched my cards around, which is the troublemaker role, and that's just crazy. Usually people, I was thinking about it, and usually people come out as a troublemaker during the time frame. But if if the troublemaker actually lies about their role and says that there's something else, like the villager or something that doesn't have any powers, then you can actually destroy the bad people that are trying to kill humans, or the werewolves are trying to kill humans, because they're not werewolves anymore.
They don't know it,
and that's just it's really fun. It's really cool.
There was one game that we played, and this was, I think, my favorite, little session that we did, where at the start of the game, Ollie was a werewolf, and I was a villager, but my villager power was the robber, which means during the night, when no one's looking, I can switch my card with another player's card and then look at their card, and then it becomes mine. So during the night, I randomly just pick Ali, and Ollie's a werewolf. So I become the werewolf, and Ollie becomes the townsperson. And he doesn't know that he's not the werewolf. But I do, because I'm now the werewolf. So my whole goal was to convince the people that I'm still a human character, and tell people that Ali was a werewolf, which was true until it wasn't.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So, this is a great game to play if you like. Basically, if you like talking and just trying to figure stuff out, figure out who's lying, who's not as a group. The style of game this is called is social deduction games, and if you want to learn more about these, we actually talked a lot about social deduction games in episode 29 of Thinktwice. So check out episode 29, which is 30 episodes ago, so like half a year ago, where we go more into depth on social deduction games. But this is a great. I would go as far as say I think this is, between the two of us, this is probably our combined favorite type of game.
Easily. Yeah, this is my favorite type of game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like a lot of other games. So the only bad thing about this is you have to have at least 5 people. The game doesn't work, nor is any fun with any less than that. And the more people you have, the better. Even with just the one night werewolf, regular werewolf, really any social deduction games, you want at least 5 people. So you can kind of split, because you secretly split the teams up, and usually the bad guys have less people. So that's kind of difficult because you have to cobble together all these people to play. But if you're able to, it's a lot of fun. This is also something that can ruin families, I'll go ahead and say, because fortunately, Ali and I are, with this game and the next game, which is another social deduction game, we specifically know when each other's lying almost immediately. So our role in the game, and this happened in Werewolf, this happened in the other game, is basically us immediately figure out the other person is lying and then trying to convince everyone else that we're right.
Yeah, there were times too where we're both on the same side. We knew we were on the same side. We actually lost because we were the roles that had no information, and I was so upset. I was like, Parnell, how did we lose?
Yeah.
I was like, come on, man.
I know, and it was very rare that happened.
I think you felt similar. And that was because we had even though we had roles that had no info,
we still should have been able to figure it out.
I still was like, we still should have won. Exactly. Yeah.
So, but if you were like us also, you can yell at each other, and literally we yelled at each other for sure in the game, but after the game is done, it's all good. Yeah, it doesn't matter. We don't carry it over into anything else. Okay. So One Night Ultimate Werewolf is a really quick game. Like Ollie said, front to back, unboxing till when you're done playing is 10 minutes. And it's a lot of fun. The next game is a game I got at Gen Con called Hail Hydra. This is another social deduction game with hidden roles. This one is more of a board game, though. It takes about 45 minutes. It's similar to Werewolf in the fact that people get hidden roles. You're either Shield or you're Hydra. And it's Marvel themed. The art on this game is awesome. I literally can't say the components in the art on the game are beautiful. It's very classic comic book style art. But in this game, your roles are hidden, but everyone gets to pick a superhero, and every superhero has a power that they can use, and all the powers are actually pretty powerful. And over the course of the game, you're trying to figure out who is Shield and who is Hydra. But the twist for this game is Hydra can reveal that they're Hydra, and then what they do changes. They simply become an agent of Hydra, they stop being a superhero, and their abilities change. So you can get figured out in poor BBD was Hydra twice. And when we played Werewolf, he was Werewolf 75% of the time. When we were playing Hell Hydra, I was Shield both times, he was Hydra both times, and within the first minute of the game, both times I knew he was Hydra.
Yeah. You did.
So I'm spending the rest of the game trying to convince everyone else. The first time I figured out BBD and Ollie were Hydra. I figured out BBD immediately, and then a couple of minutes later I figured out Ollie. So then Ollie and I spend the next 30 minutes basically trying to convince everyone on our side.
I think I had to look up.
You absolutely did not. I said it immediately. I was like, I said it's BBD and Ali. Yeah, no, you did get everyone else. That's why we lost. It's because you did convince everyone else. But that's what it is. You're trying to convince people that you're on the good team, and you do this because there's villains trying to destroy the city in Hail Hydra, and you're playing cards that either help the villains or hurt the villains. Obviously, if you're Hydra, you're trying to help the villains, and if you're Shield, you're trying to hurt the villains, but you don't know what other cards people are playing. Everyone plays them. They all get shuffled up face down, and then you reveal them. And you kind of figure out, based on the number of cards people played and what they've kind of said and the actions that they've taken during the game, you kind of try to figure out who is Hydra and who is Shield. If you like playing games like Werewolf, you'll like this. If you've played Battlestar Galactica, you'll like Hail Hydra a lot. It's very similar, except it takes a fraction of the time. And if you like Resistance, you'll also like Hail Hydra, though I think Hail Hydra is a superior game to Resistance. I think Resistance is a little bland, and I think Hail Hydra has a lot more flair to it. So, another social deduction game. Yeah.
I liked it. I also liked that this one's a little favor towards the bad guys.
Yeah,
like that.
The game is called Hail Hydra, right? It's not. It is for a reason.
For a reason.
I don't want to say more often. Excuse me. I don't want to say more often than not the bad guys win, but even though the bad guys have fewer numbers, I do think that they have to work less hard to win than in other games like this, where it's hidden roles and there's fewer bad guys.
I think it's important though, because it's so easy. I think this game is a little easier to figure out who the bad guy is. So I'm glad I
think it was easy for us. So. I don't know that was the case with the other people that we were playing with necessarily. Now that may have been the fact that I don't know. Yes and no. Yes and no. I think there's enough resistance to finding out who it is to make it engaging. Okay. The third game we played is a game called Gizmos. The game here is you are essentially at the flavor of the game is you're at a science fair and you're trying to create this machine that is going to do all of these functions when you basically do one action. So during the game, you can take one action and your action does one thing. However, when you buy gizmos to add to your machine, your action might trigger another action, and then that action might trigger another action, and so on and so on. And you're basically trying...
the domino effect.
And you're basically trying to put combos together to accrue as many actions as you can, which are ultimately going to lead you to getting more points at the end of the game. This game is... I don't want to say it's complicated, but it is... it's very... even though it's kind of card based, so if you've played, I compare this game a lot to Splendor or Race for the Galaxy. So if you played either of those games, you'll really like Gizmos. It is card based, so you're kind of like you're like buying cards with your resources and putting them in front of you, and those are your gizmos that trigger each other. But this is the first time you play this game, you're just like, I don't even know what I can do. Do you want to describe your experience?
Yeah. The learning curve. Also, the learning curve game one is it's a little steep. You don't know what's going on for most. You know what's going on, but not really for the first couple turns, and then you get it. And then by the middle of the game, you understand what's going on because you realize that you
realize where you messed up.
Probably didn't build right. Yeah, and then by the end of it, you're like, okay, I want to play again. I kind of know what I'm doing now. I think I'll do better next time. And then I think this game, the third or fourth or fifth game, are all gonna be amazing. A lot more fun because you know what you're doing and how to build. And this is a game where the more you play,
it's a really rewarding game because, as Ali's saying, the more you learn about it, the more the game kind of opens up for you. The great thing about this game is you can play this with 2 players, 3 players, and 4 players, and that's great every time. It takes basically for every player you have, it's about 15 extra minutes. So a 2-player game is going to take about 30 minutes. 4 players probably going to take about an hour. it's if you really like deep strategy, then I think this game is fantastic. You can take a lot of different paths to victory, and you can kind of change those paths in the middle of the game as long as you're thinking several turns ahead. So that was another game I got at Gen Con, one that I really like. So I'd certainly recommend you check that out. It's actually not available yet, but it'll be available maybe a week after this podcast comes out, I think in early September. But this and Hell Hydra are not out yet. They're games I got at Gen Con, but they should be available for retail release pretty soon. All right, then the next game that we played is quickly becoming one of my favorite games. And the game is called Sushi Go. This is a drafting game where you essentially just deal everyone a hand of cards, and then you draft, and at the end of the round, the cards are worth a varying amount of points depending on what combination of cards you got. The art and the components of this game are great. They're adorable little sushi, different like sushi characters. They look really good. You can change out the different cards. There's basically like 8 sets of cards every time, but you can change all of them out there. It's completely customizable. So you could literally, there's like, I don't know, probably like 70 different configurations you could have. Probably more than that, honestly. But there's a ton of different configurations you can have for this game.
Yeah, this one was like, this game was one of my favorite ones, even though it's so simple. It was just, it's pretty fast paced. It's friendly. It's family friendly, and it's like also competitive because like what you do, what you draft, and what strategy go also matters. There's some things that reward you for drafting cards or drafting pieces that reward you at the end of the game. Immediately. And others reward you
and then some are a little bit in the middle.
Risky, and then some are risky. Like, okay, this is worth a lot of points, but if your opponent's also doing it, you both get 0 points or something. It's really cool.
We played this game for several hours, and since I bought this game at Gen Con too, but I've played it before then, but I wanted a copy for myself. I've played this game with Meredith and Levi. Levi's 11. He loves it, and he's like finally figuring out strategy for it. And it's very kid friendly, but it's not a kid. I don't want to say it's not a kid's game because it's like the look of the game and basically the strategy is basic enough for a kid to understand it, but it's also deep enough for 5 adults to sit here and play this game for 2 hours.
Yes,
it's really a phenomenal game.
Easily.
Takes about 20 to 30 minutes. You can play it. It says 2 to 8. I don't think it's a great 2-player game, but it's a fine 3-player game. So I would say 3+. And then it's really great. If you like Seven Wonders, is another drafting game. It's a lot more complicated than Sushi Go, but it's pretty similar. Same with Dominion and like Ticket to Ride are as far as like basically getting cards and then like matching them up with other cards. I think those are two good comparisons, even though those are obviously more popular and well-known games. If you like those, I would definitely look into Sushi Go.
Yeah, this and One Night Ultimate Werewolf are ones I want to.
Which is good, and those are both cheap. You can probably get those for a combined like $30. Because Sushi Go is like $20. I think One Night Ultimate Werewolf is like $10. They're 2 great games. It's really, really high replay value. Okay, so the last game that we're going to talk about today is a game that's a little bit different from the rest. It's called Unstable Unicorns. This is, I've been trying to figure out how to exactly to describe this game, but I think I'll go for the rules. You start with a hand of like 5 cards, and the goal of the game is to have 7 unicorns in your stable, and your stable is basically just your play area in front of you. You start with 1 baby unicorn, and then every turn you draw a card, and you can play up to 1 unicorn or one card from your hand. Some of them are effects that affect other things in the game. Some of them are unicorns. Some of them are basic unicorns that don't do anything. Some of them are special unicorns that do something when they enter your stable. And basically, you're trying to get to 7, and you're trying to make sure your opponents don't get to 7. So you're like messing with them. There's some random element since you're drawing from a deck, but
you play 1 action per turn too. You can do 1 thing per turn, unless it's basically instant speed. The only instant speed cards in the whole
it's basically counter
game.
Spell.
It's basically literally counter spell. Yeah. There's some counter spells that are uncounterable. There's some counter spells that make your opponent also discard a card when the spell is countered. So
yeah, and there's a lot of different. I think there's a bunch of expansions for the game. And again, this is like unicorns, so it's a bunch of like little kind of cutesy art. But it's not necessary. It doesn't make it a kids game again for sure. I think
Oh yeah, there's
also one of the expansions is a not safe for work, and it certainly lives up to that name. I think if you have played Exploding Kittens, which is a game that Ali has, which I actually like better than Unstable Unicorns, because it's a lot quicker and it's still kind of fun and fast paced, and you're still like messing with people.
Yes.
Honestly, even though this has nothing to do with the game, but I think if you enjoy like Cards Against Humanity, then the flavor of this game will appeal to you. Just because it's like it's silly and it's wacky, and if you have the Not Safe for Work expansion, it's kind of raunchy as well. I think this takes probably 30 to 45 minutes to play. But we played a 4-player game that took almost 2 hours, which I don't know how it took that long, but it did, and it was soul crushing to play the game for that long. But I think that is certainly the exception and not the rule. I think you can supposedly play with 2 players, though I think this is better with 3+ as well.
Yeah, this game is. I don't know. I like it, but it's not like one that I could play over and over again.
Yeah, this is a good palate cleanser game, like between other games that are maybe a little more serious. I don't know. I don't love it. This is probably never a game I would pick, but it's also one I wouldn't, say, well, I don't want to play this game, though. I definitely was saying that after that 2-hour game. I was like, I never want to play this game again. That was just too long. But yeah, that's so to recap the games that we played over the weekend, and these are all ones I would recommend, and we tried to cover like a bunch of different audiences. Is One Night Ultimate Werewolf, Hell Hydra, Gizmos, Sushi Go, and Unstable Unicorns. Hell Hydra and Gizmos should be retailing soon. The rest you could get on Amazon or probably your LGS. And again, if you want to hear more about our thoughts on social deduction games, check out Thinktwice episode 29, about 30 episodes ago. So it is.
Good one.
All right. Ollie, anything else on board games before we wrap up for the day?
No.
All right. Well, in that case, we're going to jump out for a moment, and when we return, question of the week. So, Ollie, we have a question of the week this week, which may surprise you.
I'm shocked and awed.
No, we haven't.
Yes, another one.
I know. I know you thought that we might just be getting rid of question of the week forever, but that is not. It's not the case. No.
Not the case. All right. The question of the week is Maggie the cutest dog in the world?
Yes. Case closed. Okay. We'll have a. But you know what? I think we should have a second question of the week. How do you feel about that?
Okay.
All
right.
Okay.
I'll accept.
So the question of the week this week isn't about Magic, specifically. It's also not about Jason Statham, conveniently. I know you're disappointed.
Or the Meg.
Ollie talked at length about the movie The Meg over the weekend. He told me not to share that with everyone, but I'm going to share it because I would not leave you guys out in the cold like that and not tell you about his transgressions. Well, who are you going to believe? You guys have listened to Ollie talk about The Meg on this podcast. How many times last week did he bring it up? Like 5? After he told me not to bring it up? I think you guys know the truth. Anyway, question of the week this week. And this is a good one, very topical for us. When you're not playing Magic, because obviously, I would imagine almost everyone that listens to this podcast is a gamer of some sort and probably a Magic player. But when you're not playing Magic, would you rather spend your other gaming time playing video games or board games?
See, I play video games a lot more actually. That's because board games take a lot more effort and coordination and planning. And it's really hard to do, especially with being older and having a kid, I think. And I don't know, it's hard for me. Like I think it helps a little bit that you live in an area and work in a place where there's people that play Magic or etc. But you also to be fair, you also are better at coordinating these type of things and organizing them.
I mean, that's true. Not as a knock on you, but yeah.
So yeah. So my vote is I would rather play board games, but I definitely play more video games.
So I don't know how I'm gonna tweet this out, since all is gonna say I'd rather play one, but I'm gonna choose. So what are you picking? When I tweet this out, what is your position on this poll?
Well, the question is, would you rather play video games or board games? I'd rather play board games, but I definitely play a lot more. It's
okay,
games.
But you would rather do board games, and that's the question, right? Okay, all right. It's okay. I'm gonna say board games too. We can agree every once in a while.
Okay.
I understand. You don't want to continually be wrong on the question of the week, so I get it.
Oh my God, that's not the reason.
So I get it. Well, it's fine. Look, it's okay sometimes when you just lose.
Or maybe we both
want to be on the winning team sometimes. It's good. It's good to pick up a W instead of an L.
But what if we both lose?
We could both lose, but that is up to you guys. You should let us know at Ali Aintrazi on Twitter, at jparnell1 on Twitter, and of course at Thinktwice MTG on Twitter for the question of the week. Ollie, where else can people find you?
Can find me Twitter. Everything is /Ali Aintrazi. Twitter, Twitch, and cool stuff /gatheringmagic.com. Every Friday, my articles go up.
So cool stuff.
You can find me.
Inc.com or gatheringmagic.com, not cool stuff /gatheringmagic.
Yes.
In case they are actually typing it in instead of Googling.
Yeah, I'll just do cool stuff Inc.com. That's the better one. That's where it'll always be at. Eventually, Gathering Magic is going to go away. So coolstuffinc.com.
And of course, people can find me on Twitter as well at jparnell1. You can also find me on StarCityGames.com and YouTube every Wednesday. I'm the host of the Commander Versus series. We are still about in the middle of our season. We're going to have 10 episodes this season. Spoiler alert, little extra for the Think Twice listeners. And I think episode 6 came out this week. So we have 4 more to go. So we're trudging right along. If you want to contact the show, again, you can do so at ThinkTwiceMTG on Twitter and thinktwicemtg@gmail.com. If you want to send us a little more personalized message, some of you have sent us messages in. I've seen them. We haven't responded to all of them yet, but I've seen them. We'll get to it. If you want to find the show, you can do so on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play Music. And if you don't mind, please leave a review or a 5-star rating. It doesn't take you very much time, and we appreciate it a very, very much amount. The muchiest amount that we can.
All
of them.
All the muchies. Not Munchie. Not Munchies.
All the munch amounts. You can also find not only the podcast, but you can also find video content from myself and Ali. I've been playing some Magic Arena, some Singleton League, some competitive drafts. Ollie's been doing his deck submissions, and he's been posting it to youtube.com/thinktwicemtg. Again, you can find the podcast and some other Magic content from us. If you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/thinktwicemtg. We have a lot of great rewards tiers, including our $1 Augur Bolus tier that gets you early access to the show. It gets you tokens from Ollie and myself, as well as our special Think Twice Discord channel, including the Animal of the Week channel. Speaking of which,
it's time to announce Animal of the Week, and it is Kona and the Cone of Shame. Kona's a one-eyed, looks like a pit bull, and wearing a Cone of Shame.
Oh, Kona's very sweet though.
Or Kona is very sweet, and give it. Hopefully, we'll get a picture from the Mr. Beast, the Beast, to share for you guys, because Kona is a beautiful.
Kona is. Beautiful I want to give Kona some love. Yeah, just because he's on that little Kona face. I don't know if I'd be able to get to it because you got the Kona Shame going, but Kona needs some loving. So if we can get a picture of Kona, we'll make sure to send that out, so Kona can get some extra loving. Definitely deserve it.
He needs it.
Okay. Yeah. We want to give a special thanks to our graphic designer, Amber West. You can find her work at amberwestdesign.com. And of course, our director and producer, John Choi. He's the man behind the curtain every week. He played that terrible, awful music, the question of the week. That was him. I have not heard it, but I stand behind my statement. We also want to thank our Agent of Bowls producers, Daniel Hunt, Matt Lindell, and Liam Whelan. We could literally not do the show without you guys. Thank you for your support very, very much. And Ollie, thank you for your support.
Thank you, guys.
Oh,
thank you for your support, Parnell.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I love you too.
Love you, buddy.
And we love you guys as well. Thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Bye, guys.